And President-elect Donald Trump will begin choosing his cabinet in the days and weeks ahead. This is according to the team leading his transition to the White House. In a statement, co-chairs Linda McMahon and Howard Lutnick said they will present Trump with a wide array of experts from which he can select for his team. They say he will select personnel that enact policies that will make the life of Americans affordable, safe, and secure.
And for more on this, let's cross live now to New York and speak with the Rise News correspondent Rotimi Kade. Rotimi, thanks for joining us. And earlier when I was told by the producer that we were going to have a chat with you, I was thinking, is it too early to talk about Donald Trump's team? But I guess it's not. We just read that story now. And reports say, I remember last Donald Trump administration, he had a team. It was almost like a revolving door. People come in, go out, write a tell-all. And reports are saying he's been monitoring people who have been supporting him when they started supporting him. Was it before 2022 when he was sort of sidelined by the party? Was it after that? Was it before he took Iowa? What can we expect from a Donald Trump team this time? Are we going to see a more stable and disciplined team, Rotimi?
We're going to be seeing a more different team from what we've seen in the past. You recall that his first term, his team were filled with experienced generals, experienced foreign experts. We're talking about people like, John Kelly, who was, a general in the Air Force, in the military. He was talking about Jeff Sessions, who had been in the Congress for a while, was the Attorney General. Eventually, these people actually fell out with him because they served like, a sort of a brittle, opponent, so to speak, within his kitchen cabinet, which to a very large extent, prevented him from actually, moving in the opposite directions, because according to some of the exposés that we've gotten from them, they said that he actually is very, very ambitious, and sometimes in some cases are really very unknowledgeable about so many other things. But eventually they fell out with him. And now that he's back in the White House, he has actually said it, that he needs some very loyal people, people that is going to be loyal to him, people that is going to stand with him throughout his presidency. And I think we're going to be seeing more of the MAGA supporters, people who stood by him even when he was down, when the chips were down. Donald Trump said he's going to remember them. So most likely we're going to be seeing, crops of people that are not necessarily experienced for their positions, but they have loyalty just to the president alone. And this is going to be a far cry from what people expect, from this administration moving forward, because nobody's going to serve as, that opposition to the president should, in case is moving in an opposite direction that is antithetical to the Constitution of the United States.
Twice survived 2 assassination attempts, facing charges, some of which we're now hearing, all of which we're now hearing are being worked to be dropped because, of course, the law in the U.S. does not permit a certain president to have those charges hanging around his head. But can you tell us, Rotimi, if we have been able to establish what happened during this election? The Kamala wave, we didn't see much of that. We didn't see that happen. And then a comeback of Trump. What are analysts saying in the U.S.? What really happened during this election?
Well, first of all, going to your first questions, I think Jack Smith met with some Department of the members of some Department of Justice to actually see how they can finalize the investigation against President Trump moving forward, because we know that in a matter of days he's going to be sworn in as the president of the United States. So they're trying to see how they can speed it up in a way that's not going to affect, the transition team. And some people in some quarters actually feel that, oh yes, perhaps maybe they just want to put a nail in the coffin for Trump going into a second term presidency in a way to actually discredit his presidency. In some quarters, they're saying, okay, so what he has to do right now is to see whether some of those cases are going to be dropped. But I'm afraid some of them might not be dropped. Now, there's a new law that actually makes it very, very difficult to prosecute a sitting president, which Trump will enjoy the immunity of it. But of course, you have to get to the Supreme Court to actually get some clarifications about what those laws actually said, whether the president can, in actual way, answer to some of his crimes when he was just a private citizen. And going back to the Kamala wave, is a shocking wave, I would say, here in the U.S., because nobody ever expect that she's going to lose in that manner. It was a landslide, I would say. It was a landslide. Nobody actually was expecting that. Even in some stronghold, the so-called blue walls, like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and of course, Pennsylvania. These are the areas that the Democrats were concentrating on. They feel like if Kamala Harris can hold on to those blue walls, their chances to 270 electoral vote, it's very clear. But we've seen how Donald Trump came from, ashes, basically, and, demolished blue wall states, to taking Pennsylvania, taking Michigan, and of course, going down to the South and taking Georgia, and just, crushing whatever wave that Kamala was having, moving into this election. And don't forget, she had just 103 days, so to speak, to actually campaign for this election. So she doesn't have enough time to introduce herself to the people of the United States, even though she's been a senator, she's been the vice president for the last 4 years. But on the other hand, we have Trump, who has been in there for the last 4 years since he lost the election in 2020, campaigning. So a lot of people are more comfortable with Trump because his message actually resonated with them, because it's been a long time, compared to Kamala Harris, who basically just joined, the race, and she did her best. As a matter of fact, a lot of people gave her some, incredible thumbs up, because she did an incredible job moving into this. But again, it's time for the Democratic Party to actually come together and see who's going to be the next standard bearer, and how they can speak to the language of the people, like, the non-college whites electorates, or perhaps maybe the Latinos, who demographics actually show that they went to the right, voting for Donald Trump for the second term.
All right, Rotimi, quickly, Americans look past his criminal charges, character values, and divisive rhetoric to vote Trump. If he carries out his campaign promises, one of which is getting back at his enemies, the question on the minds of many is how this will test the limits of presidential power and then the solidity of American institutions.
Well, I think data actually shows that Americans were really concerned about the character of President Donald Trump at this moment. I think they were more concerned about the economy. And I think that's where the vote actually went eventually, because to a very large extent, people felt that their lives were kind of worse off now than it was, the past 4 to 5 years when President Trump was there. So some people are still living in that, so to speak, the cloud of prosperity that the Trump presidency do have. But again, data actually show that, this administration, the Biden administration, has done incredibly well in terms of jobs. It has done incredibly well. It's, I think, the lowest in the past 10 years, that's about 4%, which is almost the same when President Trump was in power. When you look at the job numbers look incredibly well. The Biden administration has been churning out, a lot of, thousands of jobs on a month-to-month basis. But again, the food prices going up, which the vice president promised that she's going to deal with when she becomes president. Part of her promises was, price gouging and all of that, where she believes that it's not inflation per se, which a lot of people complain about, that is making their lives even much, much miserable. We've seen a lot of, milestones that this administration have been able to achieve in the past, 4 years. But again, it's a lack of, sort of and articulating some of this gains of the Biden administration well enough, to the American people to see that this administration perhaps has done incredibly well compared to what a lot of people are now saying on national television.
I mean, Rotimi, it's the economy stupid has been sort of the tagline after Donald Trump's win. I think 67% of American voters thought the economy was not good or poor. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts about the U.S. presidential election.